Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for our weekly podcast show as myself, Dan Bardell, and my good friend Gregg Evans, the athletic reporter, look back on Aston Villa 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1 in the FA Cup fourth round. Uncharted territory for Villa as they enter the fifth round. Maybe the last year of my 30s, we'll see. And a cup win for Villa that I've been waiting for so long, since I was 10. In fact, this show is sponsored by Nordvpn. A little bit more later about them in the show, so watch out for that. Warn you, I'm feeling very, very buoyant and overexcited after yesterday. So I'm going to be up for this show. There's going to be a lot of positivity. So we'll see if Gregg can either drag me down or join me in the positivity. Gregg, you're a busy boy. You were very busy yesterday. Left me a voice note, which is quite rare because you were driving back from probably what was the shock of the round in the FA Cup.
Yeah. A long travel down to Plymouth. I can
confirm
that it is not close to my house. It does take a while to get there. Although, to be honest, it didn't actually take much longer to get there than it does for me to go to Birmingham to Liverpool, because the M6 is usually so bad and so congested that despite it being half the distance in miles, it actually takes the same time. But yeah,
really?
it was yeah, we won't focus too much on Plymouth, but it was great to be inside Home Park. I haven't been there since 2010, 11, I think, when I used to cover Walsall. And quite a lot's changed there. The atmosphere was amazing. They were really up for it. You know, Liverpool rested quite a lot of players, didn't they? So it was a very much weakened team. So hardly the magic of the FA Cup, but I think Plymouth will take it. And yeah, drove home, left you a voice note because, you know, you can't text when you drive, can you? And then I watched the Villa game for all the way through from 12 o'clock until 2 a.m., which was a nice early morning watch.
I'll tell you, that is pure commitment, isn't it? Pure commitment from you. That is what you're about.
Yeah, I'd just say professionalism.
Yeah, it's good professionalism. Maybe we could all learn a thing or two from professional global Gregg Evans. Before we get into the game, Gregg, the FA Cup in general now, the way it's gone across the first two rounds, and Villa, as I say, Villa never do this really in the FA Cup. Haven't done this kind of thing for about 10 years, probably since the last time that they got to the final. Villa have now got a great chance, although I will caveat that with three of the teams left in complete bogey teams, and if we draw any of them away from home, Newcastle, Wolves, Manchester United, we might as well pack it in.
Yeah, look, I put a tweet out this morning. I think it's really exciting for the FA Cup to have teams like Brighton and Newcastle, Villa, Nottingham Forest, if they go through tonight or tomorrow, is it? And
tomorrow, I think Forest.
Yeah, to have one of these teams that are so desperate to get a trophy, you know, it will boost the fan base so much. It will be a brilliant day out for them, a day that they'll never forget. But let's not forget, you know, there's the two Manchester clubs are still there. Manchester City have been poor this season, but you still wouldn't like to go to the Etihad against them, would you? Because they have got, you know, incredible players and can beat anyone, of course, on their day. Manchester United are the holders. You know, we can all laugh about how bad they've been this season, but they are still the last team to win this cup. And, you know, Newcastle are pretty strong as well, so you wouldn't want to go to St James's either, would you? So
no, not even if they're rubbish, I wouldn't want to go there.
No. There are some really tough teams left in there, but it's a chance for Villa, a massive chance for Villa to go far in this competition and to potentially win it. And for some of the longest serving members of staff at the club, certainly for some of the longer serving players, you know, the likes of Konza and Mings and Jacob Ramsey, and there's one more, John McGinn. You know, they feel like they've been on this incredible journey with Villa through the Championship. Not Konza, he came in the promotion season, through the first season in the Premier League. But they feel like they've been on this incredible journey with Villa, and the only thing missing now is a trophy. So for those longer serving players, they're so pumped up to drive this trophy success at some point. You know, could it be this season? Villa are still in the Champions League and still in the FA Cup, and to win one of those would just be, you know, incredible for the supporters.
It becomes a huge priority now for me. Last season, I was a bit wishy-washy around the conference because I felt top four was really, really important. I mean, to be fair, we nearly went all the way anyway and managed both and still finished top four. And obviously, we fell off a cliff a little bit towards the end of the season with form due to injuries and other factors, I would say. Actually, my list of priorities now, the FA Cup I really, really want it. I've really enjoyed the 2 home ties at Villa Park, 2 proper games of football, 2 proper cup atmospheres. Last night felt quite big, the 5:35 on a Sunday night. It felt like a proper FA Cup tie, Greg.
Yeah, look, the 5:30 is a great time for an FA Cup tie, I think. We won't focus too much on Birmingham City here, but you saw, the atmosphere at
Yeah.
St Andrews for the Newcastle game the day before. Incredible atmosphere there, and under the lights, that's what supporters want. They want those sort of night games against big teams. And as pathetic as Tottenham are, they still are classed as a big team for Villa. And ultimately Villa got the job done yesterday. Very, very professional job. Okay, conceded late on, but it never really looked in doubt, did it?
No, a brilliant start. Obviously, 1 minute in, you go in 1-0 up. It's you can't ask for more than that, really, can you? It doesn't get better than that. Some very questionable goalkeeping from Kinski in the Spurs goal, who I thought was brilliant in his first 3 or 4 games for Spurs, but just seems to have been dragged down and looks like he's really struggling now. And confidence is a problem for him. So obviously, it's a mistake, but a bit similar to the West Ham game at home a few weeks ago, getting Ramsey into good positions early on, and Ramsey could have had a hat trick quite comfortably yesterday. If he'd have had his shooting boots on, he'd have been walking home with the match ball. That's for sure. But good to see him now. It feels like I don't want to curse because injuries are a massive problem at the moment, but it feels like he might now finally be over all those injuries that he kept picking up, and he is getting back to somewhere near his best. And just watching the way he carries the ball, he is a delight.
Yeah, smiling again and confident in his own skin. You can see he's got a bit of rhythm and momentum now, and the goals are coming, which is good. He's getting lots of chances, be really effective in games. The way he drives forward with the ball is something that we know he's brilliant at anyway. And Villa have got quite a few players who could do that now. I thought the opening goal was a great example of how Villa can quickly move from back to front, in the space of sort of 6 to 8 seconds. The goal was, started with Martinez. A ball eventually finds its way into Rodgers, who pretty much takes out 4 or 5 players, really.
Mate, it's a joke.
Incredible running ability. I mean, there aren't many players like him in the world. He has this brilliant knack of just being able to drive through midfield, hold players off, and create opportunities for his teammates. And look, Villa work on that in training. Back to front very quickly. Work on the overloads either down the left or the right side. On this occasion, it was down the left. Luca Dean and Ramsey were both supporting Rodgers, so he had the opportunity to find either one of them. Ramsey takes the shot. Dreadful goalkeeping, but if you hit it on target, you've always got a chance.
Yeah, Rodgers a minute in. Yeah, you're right. I tweeted yesterday. He's literally one of the most unique players in Europe and one of the best players in Europe at the moment. He is on absolute fire, and he's added productivity now, which we'll come on to a little bit later in the show. But there's, people talk about breaking the lines with passes and taking players out the game with passes. Rodgers is one of the only players I can think of that I watch, and I watch a lot of football and think, this guy breaks lines with the way he dribbles and carries the ball. And I think that's the thing that makes him so unique, Greg.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to get through opposition lines, isn't there? Tielemans does it with his brilliant passing. Rodgers can do it with his direct running and his ability to hold off players. There are other players across the Premier League who break lines in different ways. You look at Ryan Gravenberch, he turns superbly, and that immediately turns defence to attack. So there's so many different ways, and I just think Villa have got such a unique player in Rodgers now who can just mix a little bit of everything. He's tough, he holds off players phenomenally, scores lots of goals, he's creative. And I just really like him as a character as well. He never seems to get carried away by anything. And, he's in the form of his life now. He's had some big moves he's had one big move to Manchester City in his younger years, and it didn't quite work for him. He had to drop down a little bit and rebuild himself. But, a player like him in the form that he's in, he should be, he should be, he should be like on top of the world, but you never get that impression that he's not just soaking it all up, listening to what Unai Emery says. And his interview after the game yesterday was lovely. Just that he spoke about some of the new players and just the fact that they've come in and added competition to his place. And I mean, if there's anybody who deserves his place still, it's Rodgers. And I just maybe hope that Villa, with these new players who we'll get onto later, I'm sure, just hope it doesn't upset the balance too much, because you see Rodgers and Ramsey really performing well now, and hope it doesn't limit their game time.
Rodgers is a lock. Rodgers is the first pick. Out of every player in the attacking positions, Villa have got an embarrassment of riches there now. I still think when everyone's fit, when everyone's firing, I still think Rodgers is the first person that's picked. I think he's that good. And his 12 months, the ascent that he's had now, he's absolutely ridiculous. I think we said in pre-season, someone tweeted me this last night, actually, that we said he was the player that we were most excited about going into the new season. He was a player we felt could have a real impact. He had a good pre-season as well, but it just felt like it was all coming together quite nicely for him, the change of position slightly as well. At the time, I don't think I thought he was going to be this good though, Greg. And he has been brilliant.
No, I was speaking to a member of the coaching staff at the back end of last year, and he was saying, Rodgers is the guy that they were really, really excited about. You could just remember when sort of Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale came into Villa, they were talking about how excited they were for Ramsey as well. And the fact that two of those players now, okay, they are still relatively young in terms of football. They've got plenty of years ahead of them, but they're not young kids anymore. They need to be performing at this time. The fact that they've got such a good connection on and off the pitch and are playing together, and are English, it's great for the national team as well. I just think it's brilliant for Villa and the region as well, because you've got players who have got that local connection. I know sort of a little bit further away than specifically from Birmingham, but it's nice to see local lads coming through, isn't it?
Yeah, really
supporters buy into that more often, and it's good for the academy as well, because you look at so many youngsters that are dreaming of playing for Villa, and if there's not a local lad playing in the first team, it's hard for the academy staff to say, well, this is what you could be doing, because you look at the team and they're full of foreign multi-million-pound players. But Villa had, this wonderful talent in Jack Grealish, who they could always use as the prime example to young kids coming through. If you work hard, if you focus on what we're telling you to do and enjoy your football, this could be you in the future. And now, Villa have got that with Jacob Ramsey and potentially other players coming through as well.
Yeah, Rodgers, he plays every minute as well. He's played pretty much every game. I don't remember too many games where he hasn't been involved. Maybe Crystal Palace at home in the Carabao Cup, but every single game this season, bar when he picked up a suspension, didn't he, for 5 yellows? He has got a lot of yellow cards this season. That would probably be my only criticism of him. But I think at the moment, nothing's jumping out at me off the top of my head, so I could be completely wrong, and this is something that just popped into my head. He's a certainty to be on the shortlist for PFA Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, if he carries on the way he's going. I can't think of anyone else who would beat him at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are some some decent players, aren't there, at the moment? But I can't think of any youngish players that I mean, Cole Palmer. You see in the
Rodgers
same
would beat him at the
bracket
moment
as him. Did he won it last year, didn't he? So
I think so, yeah.
Once the young player wins it typically tends to go on to that next level. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly a candidate. Liverpool have got a couple of representatives, I think, but they're slightly older, aren't they? With Gravenberch and he's a year older, but Salah and Van Dijk and
I'm talking just young player though. Young player, I think
Chris Wood's having a great season, isn't he? But yeah, if you're looking at specifically at young players, he's got to be leading the list.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Can't praise him enough. Of course, though, this is Aston Villa, so we're having a nice time. We're playing some nice football. We're looking like we might score some goals. Things are going well. We let Spurs in. Good bit of play from Spurs. No problem with that from a Villa perspective, that they opened us up. That was always going to happen at some point in the game. Emi Martinez does what Emi Martinez does and just makes a critical save. But in the midst of all that, another defensive injury, Greg, and we just can't stay away from defensive injuries at the moment. Seems to be someone going off in every game. And this week, it's Ezri Konsa. Probably, if you were to write a list of players Villa can't afford to be without at the moment, he may be somewhere near the top of that list. Looks like a hamstring injury. From what I hear, it's going to be 3 weeks minimum for him. Bad news.
It's brutal, isn't it? I really hope that Villa. I really hope that it doesn't start to get like last season did, and you remember towards the back end of the season where Villa were just so depleted. But they almost are in that stage defensively now, because no Torres, no Mings, no Konza. What we got to remember is Konza is the guy that has stepped up in Mings' absence in terms of leadership. He's now the guy that organises everything. And if you look at the back line, it's a very, when Konza was on the pitch yesterday, it's still a very, very new, makeshift, almost patched up, inexperienced back line. You've got Garcia at right back, you've got Kamara, who hasn't played many games at centre back for Villa, and Luka Dean, obviously has at left back. But there's only it's only on the pitch where players grow together, from the experiences that they face on the pitch, and players need to play with each other for a long amount of time to understand exactly what each other is going to do. And sometimes the fine margins that result in a goal is just because Konza, for example, doesn't know what the guy next to him, Garcia or Kamara, is going to do, because he hasn't played alongside him that often. So to have that real togetherness, like Mings and Konza have, or Konza and Torres have, because they've gone through the times in the trenches together. Villa need a little bit of that right now, but they haven't got Konza, they haven't got Torres, they haven't got Mings. I question the Dizazi signing, because I said, at a time when you most need a centre-back available, how do you go and sign a centre-back who can't play 2 of the next 3 games? And I'm thinking, potentially some of the other guys, might be back soon, but it didn't really matter, did it? Because Villa got through the game yesterday and qualified and progressed to the next round. So my theory, it didn't really matter in the end, because Villa got through it. They got a game against Ipswich coming up, and then the Chelsea game. Okay, it's against his parent club, but yeah, it's not looking good for Villa in defence. And as good as Lamar Bogarde has been, and he's a young guy who's been asked to fill in at various different positions, you just saw a sign of it falling away at the back end of yesterday's game. A pass that went out, poor pass out that eventually Tottenham ended up scoring from, and then he was obviously outgunned by Tell. So these fine moments, these moments and fine margins where goals are conceded, could be costly, couldn't they?
Yeah, I think Villa handled it pretty well, given the circumstances that you've spoken about and the circumstances that everyone knows there anyway with the back line. I think Bogarde has done well, and I feel like he's growing. He made a great block at the start of the second half, a really telling block that was crucial at the time, because the game was 1-0. And I just think over the last month or so, he's been asked to start games in certain positions. He's pulled into games in certain positions. He's been moved in game as well. He's literally been dropped in everywhere in the last month. But actually, I think it's almost helped him. I think he's growing and getting a little bit more confidence. I don't think he's naturally a centre back in a 2, and Spurs are probably a kind team to play in that circumstances by the way that they play football, I would say. But I think he's acquitted himself really well, and I do think he's growing, Greg.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I've got absolutely no doubt that he's growing. He's learning from these experiences, and it's brilliant for him. And it's another great example for the academy. This is a guy who won the FA Youth Cup with Villa. In that brilliant team with Carney Chukwuemeka and Aaron Ramsey and Louis Barry and others. And he was one of the players that they signed before the Brexit rules were introduced, alongside Sil Swinkles. So the fact that they've got 2 players who they signed before these rules changed, and they've both made the first team debuts for Villa, is a great success story for the academy and the club and the recruitment at Villa. I just think that, yeah, as impressive as he was throughout the game, if you look at the goal in isolation, it was his back pass that went out that was poor, and then it was broken down by Tottenham, and then they eventually scored, and it was Tell who got in front of him. So if it's 1-1, or if it's 0-0, if it's 1-1, or if it's 2-1 at that point, a goal makes a massive difference. And does Mings or a Torres or a Konza deal with that? So that's all I'm saying.
I get you. I would say we'd be doing that kind of thing anyway with senior players on the pitch. That kind of thing's happened, I would say.
Yeah, again, and I do put some of that down to the fact that it's not a settled back 4. It's been changed around. been changed around so much. You need Konza and Torres. You need Konza and Torres or Konza and Mings playing together, and because they've been through they've had the time in the trenches, they've done it, they know what each other are about, and that's what's going to help. Yeah, the other guys are going to grow, but you wouldn't fancy going Bogarde and Kamara for much longer, would you?
No, I mean, I'm sure it'll be Disassi and Kamara next week. Although I did see images of Mings kind of walking out with the rest of the team last week, so I thought he might be available for Sunday. They may be resting him or keeping him back for you. All right there, Greg? Fell off your chair. And they keeping you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a bit lower now. Just probably closer to the mic.
There we go.
Yeah, Mings is still a doubt, isn't he, for the next couple of games? So we don't know an exact update on him, but the sooner he's back, the better.
Yeah, like I say, I think it'll be Disassi and Kamara next week, all being well, against Ipswich. Another chance to win a home game and get 3 points, of course. At that point as well, people are in the comments are rightly pointing to Garcia. I thought he had a decent game as well at right back, quite unfazed, good coming forward. What I liked about him wasn't afraid to use both feet. He was quite often just carrying the ball with his left foot, actually. So he's obviously adept with both feet. Came in with the minimum of fuss. And at that point, really, in the game, Villa are kind of playing with a really inexperienced right-hand side in terms of Bogarde and Garcia playing next to each other at the back. And people have criticised Leon Bailey because he always gets criticism. But him and McGinn on that side did get through a lot of work and did really, really help out. Bailey still has his moments, of course, he does where he's frustrated. But from a defensive perspective, I think him and McGinn really helped out and really kind of alleviated any kind of difficulties that Villa might have had with that youthful setup down that right-hand side. Just wanted to talk about someone else who had their first start in the game. And I thought he was really, really bright in the first half. Greg's playing as a number 9. Daniel Marlen, fast, good movement, was involved in a lot. Got a little bit tired, I think, and got taken off. But after what happened to him in terms of the registration for the Champions League, I thought that was a nice little showcase of what he can do.
Yeah, I was speaking to a contact in Germany actually, who had followed a lot of his games in Dortmund, and said that he thought he'd be decent as a sort of more as a striker rather than a wide player. That was his suggestion. And
for the way Villa play.
Yeah, and I was quite impressed with him actually. He showed good strength as well at times, didn't he? Held the ball up relatively well. There was a couple of times where Gray, he backed into Gray and managed to get the better of him. Admittedly, only a young lad still learning his way, but
not a centre back.
Yeah, and he probably isn't really a centre back, is he? But yeah, had some moments, had some good moments. Would have been nice for him to get a goal after what can only be described as a very strange decision in midweek. I can understand Villa's conundrum that they had around the players with the Champions League squad, but I found it very, very surprising. If I'm honest, you convince a guy to come and join the football club, spend quite a lot of time trying to get him in. Villa had a look at him at the back end. Villa had a look at him last season. At that point in time, they weren't fully convinced, but he remained on the radar. And they decided that it was the time to go and get him now in this window. But to convince a player to come and sign permanently, and then a few weeks later you don't include him in the Champions League squad, after this guy got to the final last year and suffered a bit of heartbreak there as well. I just think that would have been a real low moment for him. It was absolutely inevitable, wasn't it, that he was going to play in this game?
Yeah, 100%.
And he's going to probably play a lot of games in the Premier League and the remainder of the FA Cup. That's what Unai Emery said. We hope this guy's around with us for a long time. We hope he'll play a lot of games. We really want to go far in all the competitions, so he's going to play a lot of games. But it would have been a bruising knock for him. That would have been difficult to hear.
Yeah. Have you any idea about the response that he's kind of had in training? How he took the news, Greg, from speaking to people?
Not too much. No, I've been trying to find out a little bit more about that. But I mean, look, if you look at his performance yesterday, he reacted well, didn't he? But that doesn't tell the entire story. We'll probably need weeks, I think, really, to understand, his full feelings. But there wouldn't be a player in that Villa team or any other team for that matter that would have taken that well.
No, I think it was a difficult decision. I think you're right to point out the fact, and people are pointing out in the chat, he's the permanent player.
He's the guy.
He's committed to the club.
He is committed to the club. He said, I want to join Aston Villa. I'm going to commit everything. Like, you're committing everything for me, I'm going to commit everything for you. And then he doesn't get in the Champions League squad. And two lone players who have hardly played any minutes this season do. Yeah, they might be more exciting, better players, and perhaps in the long term we might look at it and think, actually, Unai Emery and his team got the decision right. Let's hope for Villa's sake that is the case. But if we're focusing solely on Daniel Marlen, it's not a great time for him, is it?
No, I think obviously Villa have made a huge outlay on Marlen, so I'm contradicting myself with what I'm saying now. My mind will always be trying to justify what Villa do and what Unai Emery does on the pitch, certainly. I think now Asensio, for the experience, the Champions League experience and know-how he brings, he has to be registered. I think different type of player to what Villa have. I think there's no doubt he had to be registered. Maybe Disasi would have missed out had Villa not got so many problems with defensive injuries and centre-backs in particular at the moment. So he probably had to be registered.
I get Disasi, 100%.
Yeah. And then it's a straight shootout between Rashford and Marlen. You're paying Rashford £300,000 a week, all being well, if everything goes well. He's the biggest name signing there, you would say. The one who's probably got the biggest upside if everything goes really, really well with him. So it becomes a straight shootout between the two, but it's a crap decision to have to make, isn't it? I asked Jacob this, and he was a little bit not unclear, but I kind of was reading his face more than what he was actually saying to me. Kind of got the feeling that Villa thought they might be able to register 4 new players. Is there anything in that?
Yeah,
you've given me the same face as Jacob gave me, and I've spoken to people who've kind of alluded to the same as well. That I think Villa thought they might be able to register 4. So, I don't think it stops them making all those signings anyway. If they can't register 4, if they knew they could only register 3, I think they still would have their time again and do exactly the same thing. It's not is that classed as it's not really an admin error, is it? But it's a bit of like Villa thought they could manipulate the situation a little bit, and they haven't been able to.
Look, I don't know the full details of whether Villa whether thought they could get 4 registered or 3 registered or not. Now that's that. We'll move on from that because the facts are there. They could have only registered 3, so they're left with an awkward situation, which through their fault or through no fault of their own, they were left with that situation. So let's address that. Garcia, totally understandable, the younger one who had come from the second tier in Spain. We expected he would be the one that would be left out. Disasi, for me, it made sense. Bring it, a huge important time for Villa at centre back. Before Konza got injured, can't fully rely on Torres and Mings when they're not even available yet. So Disasi had to be in. And again, I just go back to the same point. Rashford and Asensio haven't played many games this season. Need a little bit more time to get their fitness up. Marlen was available for Borussia Dortmund. I think every single game he was ready. He's fit. He's 26 years old. He's not a kid. He's not somebody who can just take that setback and think, I've got loads of years ahead of me. I'm only young. He's 26 years old. He played in the Champions League final last season. So we're talking about Asensio winning, finals, etc. with Real Madrid. Yeah, but this is a guy who played in the final last year as well. Remember, let's not forget it. So, but look, the decision's been made. It's not really an issue for us to discuss it. The difficult conversation would have been Unai Emery, Damien Vidagana, Monchi, if he got involved, telling Marlen that he was not going to be in that squad. And let's hope this isn't the case, but it could be just for 2 games only, couldn't it? And then Villa move on.
I think so, Greg. I think we're going all the way, mate.
Well, I mean, look, that might be the case, but the situation, it could be just for 2 games. You don't know, and then everything's quickly forgotten about, isn't it? I think in the back of Marlen's head, he'll be thinking, well, do these guys really, really rate me as much as the others if I'm not introduced if I'm not included in that Champions League squad? But look, it's down to him in some ways as well, isn't it? If he gets lots of Premier League and FA Cup minutes, he's got to go and make an impact, and if he doesn't, and Rashford and Asensio shine ahead of him, then the reason's justified.
Right then. Okay, well, we'll get into the second half shortly, and we also need to pull Gregg up on some bad behaviour through last week in the lead up to the FA Cup as well. So we'll do that after we've heard. 1874 is proudly sponsored by Nordvpn, so when and you can't watch it, we want to help you. Nordvpn is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of Nordvpn support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think Nordvpn will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us. Yeah, do get on Nordvpn. It's really, really helpful. I use it for football watching purposes, and it is absolutely brilliant. So do have a look if you think it can help you, if money allows. Right then, Greg, before we get in the second half, do need to pull you up, unfortunately. A 3-match ban was mooted for you, a 3-pod ban, sorry, but before we did the show. But I decided just to give you an official warning instead, rather than giving you the outright ban and a fine. But you spent some time behind enemy lines last week, didn't you?
Yeah, and look, I presume yourself and not many people listening to this podcast will want to know much more about it or hear me speaking positively about Birmingham City. But yeah, look, I mean, they are the other club in the city. I'm from the area, and I do take an interest in Birmingham City. I have done ever since I've become a reporter. First working for the Birmingham Mail, and obviously now the Athletic. So I always like to follow what they're doing. And look, for so many years, it's been very, very downbeat at St Andrews. They have gone through some really bad struggles with previous ownership. The owners that are in there now are very confident, shall we say, very ambitious. They believe that they'll be back in the Premier League, sooner rather than later. The hope is for Birmingham to be in there in 2026. I think they will get promoted from League One. That's pretty inevitable. They've got the best ever squad that a League One team has had. And to be honest, as I say, I'll repeat myself. I know not many people want to hear this, but Birmingham are a club on the up. They hope to be playing Villa in the future. And what they're doing there is quite exciting. So hopefully it'll be good for the city as well, because they have some wider plans to regenerate various areas around St Andrews and into the wider East Birmingham area.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about because it's a Villa pod, obviously, but it is relevant because it's the same city. There are our rivals, but there is a lot happening there, so it's definitely worth talking about. I don't know that you went there particular, Greg, but I understand you have to do things for your job sometimes.
It is my job. Yeah.
No, I completely get it. To be fair to them, a good atmosphere for them on Saturday as well. And what a goal, jeez, what a goal that was. You weren't at the game. You weren't at that game, were you?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. No, but they
put a ticket on your day there. I'm surprised.
They put a lot of effort into the pre-match build-up, which I think was pretty good. Getting JK there, obviously a Blues fan, to perform before the game. I think all the dimming the lights and all the efforts they put in before. I think there's a lot of effort that goes into big games now across the country, isn't it? We've seen obviously the Ozzy Osbourne reference for Villa in the Champions League game. I think clubs now behind the scenes are working really hard to give supporters a better experience. And just very, very quickly to go back to Birmingham, going to St Andrews as a Birmingham City fan, which so many people have told me for so many years, decade was it was so bad. There was nothing to do. There was no food options there. People used to get there 3 minutes before a game and leave 10 minutes before, and the results were bad. Now they get in there at 12 o'clock. They're spending money in the club shop. They are eating and drinking around the stadium. It's similar in some ways to Villa. I think Villa have had maybe more issues with some of the prices around the hospitality sections, but there's a real push to get people into the stadium now and keep them in there for longer. Clubs want to do that because they want to generate more revenue, but also they are trying to improve the supporter experience. And I think you speak to Villa fans around the ground, they enjoy going to Villa Park more because there's more to do, isn't there?
It's still absolutely rammed. As space is an issue. Like after the team bus came through yesterday, like trying to get my dad round the ground to our seat to the Holton was a nightmare. There's nothing that can be done about that at all. There is infrastructure issues around Villa Park. There's no getting away from it. But lots has improved. I'm not just because I've been critical of certain things around prices and things like that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that things haven't improved, because they have. And I said to you the other week before the game, the build up and stuff when you're in the ground is 100 times better than it's ever been. So the club deserve absolute credit for that. That's fine. I don't like things around the pricing, but I'm not blind. I can see that things have improved. So I was in corporate a few weeks ago for the West Ham game. Someone invited me to the Legends Lounge.
That's the top level, I think, isn't it? That
yeah. I've got to be honest. I haven't spoke about it on here. It was absolutely so good, absolutely ridiculous. Like, and I've been in the top corporate before years ago. It's way better now. It's bloody expensive for the people that pay for it. Like, the finances are out of this world. Like, you've got to have some money to be in there every week. But the experience I had was out of this world. Such a good time. So yeah, I'm happy to give credit for things that are good. You just need to be a millionaire to have a season ticket in there, I think, is the lesson. Anyway,
but you know, there's a market for those type of people, though, isn't there? You know, people that do it, people can afford it, and so, you know, it is important for football clubs to have at least a section like that available to people who can afford it. You know, the majority of us can't. 99% of, I suppose, Villa fans won't be able to afford that, but a small percent will. So you have to cater for every option.
Yeah, I know how much was paid for me and my partner to be there. Like, it's ridiculous money. It really is, and that's just for one game. I was very lucky and fortunate to be invited by someone that I know. But you know, my only thing would be, I think Villa have been too overzealous with getting rid of normal fan areas for too much corporate that is often empty. That would be my criticism. But I'm sure what they're offering inside is absolutely brilliant. My criticisms lie elsewhere. Anyway, we completely got away from what we were supposed to be talking about.
The magic of the FA Cup.
The magic of the FA Cup. The magic of corporate hospitality. Let's talk about the second half then, Greg, and we'll start with the second goal. Again, Villa were bubbling at this point, making things happen. On another day, Ramsey scores a couple more, and the game's out of sight. Really liked the second goal. I liked Bailey kind of looked like he'd done too much and held onto the ball too long, and the crowd was getting ready to absolutely have a go at him in the whole end and hammer him again. But he did the right thing, played a lovely ball for Marlen, who put a really wicked ball across, and it's bobbled around, hit a few people, and Rodgers has managed to poke it home. Again, Rodgers crashing the box, Greg, something he's added to his game in the last month to 6 weeks. Scored a lot of goals from crashing the box. Brilliant to see. 2 goals in 2 in the FA Cup for him. He is Villa's FA Cup talisman.
Yeah, good goal. Nice to see Bailey, being involved. I think he did work quite hard yesterday, and as you mentioned earlier, alongside McGinn, who we haven't even mentioned, and was absolutely amazing, by the way. Really,
it's on the list. It was coming.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's coming,
really supportive in defence at times, and just some of his off the ball work and out of possession work that you don't always see, I thought was better. And yeah, had a good moment for the goal alongside Marlen. Rodgers jumping in there. I think Ramsey wasn't far behind as well. So yeah, it's nice to see Villa flooding players into the box and causing problems there. And I think what happened after that, Villa should have really wrapped up the game so they didn't have that slightly nervy ending after Tottenham scored.
Yeah, let's talk about John McGinn. I thought he was absolutely world class yesterday. Central hasn't played too much as a number 6 this season for Villa. He's played some games on the left, some games on the right, some games as a central number 10. Moves around everywhere, a little bit like I was saying about Bogarde earlier on. Played in central midfield last night as a number 6. It takes a lot for me to think that someone who's partnering Yuri Tillemans is better than them. But my God, McGinn was absolutely sensational. I tweeted after the game, it's like a cross between Gattuso, Pirlo. Probably throw a bit of Totti in there as well. The old Italy midfield. He was
Scott Brown.
Absolutely brilliant. No, none of that. None of that, Greg. He's better than that. Absolutely sensational in the midfield, I thought.
He's brilliant, and for so many years, I've enjoyed watching him. Just love his style, love his energy, love his enthusiasm, love his down to earthness. Always speaks to people after the games, and for us as journalists, whenever we're there, he always gives us his time. Just a top guy in general, and to see him continue to put in such brilliant performances for Villa, he's great. There was a moment, wasn't there, in the second half when it felt like almost everybody in Villa Park was singing his name, and that's
the game by the scruff of the
just a sign of of the work that he does. Yeah, there are games where he hasn't played as well as he would have liked, but he outweighs those with the games that he's brilliant in.
Honestly, is it his best game ever for Villa? I don't know. I remember saying this in the game last season, and I can't. It was Man City at home. He was brilliant that night, in fairness, on the
Yeah,
left-hand side.
yeah.
But I thought yesterday was one of his best games in a Villa shirt. Just a complete midfield. Dave Starr says here, captain's performance. Interesting to see what happens with him now. Villa have obviously got all these attacking options, and McGinn has always played in one of the attacking positions. But is he going to move back and be a 6 permanently now for Villa? Onana just seems to break down every week at the moment. He's not really available as much as they'd like. Take a lot if Kamara's playing at the back. Take a lot to get him out of that team in the number 6 position now, I think. Even when Barkley's back as well, who's done well for Villa.
Yeah, it goes back to the very first conversation that John McGinn had with Unai Emery. Emery asked him, we heard a lot about you. Why are people saying that John McGinn isn't as good as he used to be, etc.? Where do you see your best position? And John McGinn replied to him simply saying, on the pitch, playing somewhere. So as long as he's playing, he's happy. Yeah, there are positions that he's played in he hasn't been as good in, particularly under Steven Gerrard. But I think that he was great yesterday where he was.
Oh.
He can play a little bit deeper at times, I think, and he's excellent. He's got it all. He works so hard, and he's one of those guys that, again, I mentioned at the start of the podcast. He's been there for a while now, and he knows that a trophy will top off this incredible journey at Villa.
Yeah, and then if Villa score 2 minutes later, they're making substitutions that are just out of this world compared to what I've seen from Villa in the past. Long gone are the days of Borja Baston coming on at the end of games for Ali Samata. Long gone is the Trezeguet for El Ghazi swap that they did every single week in the first few years in the Premier League. Villa are bringing on Marco Asensio and Marcus Rashford. And literally straight away, you could just see the quality. Asensio's got a first touches of the ball were absolutely out of this world, and I've suddenly become I was excited anyway, but I've suddenly just become even more excited. I mean, my dad forgets what's happened in a game 2 minutes after it's happened normally, but after the game in the car, he was saying that you could just see the pure class that the Marco Asensio brought. And Rashford just looked hungry, looked up for it. I'm aware these are just early days. It's a cameo. You're coming into a team that's 2-0 up. Spurs are hopeless generally at the moment. But as a Villa fan, you can't fail but to get excited about that, Greg. I know you're not a Villa fan, but as someone who watches a lot of Villa, you must have thought, wow.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more balanced about it because
Yeah, of course.
I remember when Coutinho came off the bench and there was the exact same reaction. He obviously had a good debut, and then it didn't quite work out for him. Now, there's nothing more in football than a new sign. A new signing raises the hopes and expectations and lifts the excitement and the hype around a football club, and it's great, because sometimes the fans need that lift. So I
think Villa did need that as well after this season a little bit.
Yeah, they did. And look, when they came on, there was a noticeable lift around the stadium. Pure excitement, and some of those little fancy flicks and touches. There was one moment I think Asensio backheeled it, didn't he? And that drew real loud cheers. And Rashford was very, very direct and clearly wanted to make an impact. And it's going to be extremely embarrassing for Manchester United if he gets back to his full form. Because there's a player there, and Unai Emery knows that he's an exceptional player, and if he gets back to his best, he can be such a threat in that Villa team. But yeah, as good and as exciting as it was for Villa, I always just remain a little bit more balanced. I want to see a little bit more. I need a little bit. The sample size is so small. I need more time to decide whether these are going to be, good players. They've had a bit of time out. They've had some, injury sort of issues to deal with. So let's keep the two of them fit. Use them, in the right way, and if they continue playing like that, they're going to be very exciting players for Villa.
Yeah, I'm not going to be balanced. I'm going to get excited. I absolutely love some of the stuff I was
seeing. Sorry, Dan, just very quickly. Sometimes you fall for the names, don't you? Because it's like Coutinho. I mean, you were there and Coutinho's debut. You remember the lift from the whole end when he came on, and the excitement around the place. Sometimes Rashford, Asensio, Coutinho, they're big names. You get a little bit overexcited by them, but at the same time, these two could go on to be brilliant players for Villa. So I'm not pissing on your cornflakes too
I mean, you
much.
are. And Kevin James said, and he's absolutely right here. It's not hype, Greg. It's reality.
Okay, okay, all right.
Because you said, well, I don't think you actually meant it the way you said it. You said, like, I'm getting excited by names. I'm just getting excited by what I actually saw
What
on
you
the pitch
saw,
in the
yeah,
ground yesterday. That's the bit that's exciting me. And even, yes, they are huge names, but that does show just the progress in even 5 years. I think it was nearly 5 years to the day it was a week off being 5 years to the day when Villa threw away that league game against Tottenham Hotspur with a suicide moment from Engels. And literally in that game, we were taking Samatta off for Borja Baston. So it does just show
times have
the
changed,
levels that Villa have gone up in a short space of time is absolutely ridiculous. I absolutely love it. We'll gloss over the goal conceded, I think, because we've been going for 45 minutes now, because I didn't expect to go for that long, in all honesty. I don't want to go for too long and overdo it. But before we go, Greg, any book update?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the book's out in May, as everybody knows. Final stages are being put together now. So if anybody wants to know any more details about what's included in it, some of the people I've spoken to, feel free to reach out. I think starting from next week, we're going to have to start. Maybe I know you share some of the comments on the screen, Dan, but I'd like to start getting a bit more interactive with some of the guys, because I've seen so many comments come up.
Too many. I can't keep up with it.
I'm sorry. First of all, thanks to everybody who's tuned in, and sorry, don't feel like I'm ignoring your questions. It's not that. It's just we've got Dan's questions are taking up a lot of my time, and I haven't really had a chance to look through. So I'm just going to briefly look through.
Okay, Greg, you do some tech work.
Some of them, because there's quite a lot. I think a few people have asked me if I'm wearing a black armband because Liverpool lost. No, like when I report on Villa, I'm very neutral, so wins and draws don't affect me too much. Just going to take on some of these most recent ones. James Hill, is Greg paying attention to what Dan's saying? I think you're referencing to Asensio and Rashford's performance there rather than simply their names. I am taking into. I'm paying attention to what you're saying, and I agree. Those performances were very explosive and exciting yesterday. I'm just thinking sometimes we get carried away by names. I was driving back down the M5 when Villa were playing, but I got home at 12 o'clock and watched the game all the way through to 2:30. So probably know it as well as you do, mate.
Okay, Greg on the attack. I don't often see that. Greg Evans, very front-footed display there. Should we go? Anything else you want to pick out from the?
There's so many. So thanks again for all the comments.
There's 1,081 people here watching live at the moment.
Brilliant. It's great to see. And look, next week I'll try and be a bit more. Well, hopefully we both can be a bit more interactive with some of you guys who are on.
I've been floating stuff up as the show's gone on. So visually, there has been a lot popping up on the show, Greg. I think you were just talking when I put it up. We used to have producer, didn't we? But times are hard. Producers never seem to be available. I'm having to kind of do it whilst hosting the show. It's a tough job. It's a tough gig. I can't explain it any other way. Anything else? Anything coming up that you're writing about that you want to plug, or anything that you obviously don't plug the Birmingham City article that we've already spoken about? But anything else?
No, that's it for now. I think everyone's heard enough of me for 1 week.
That's 47 minutes longer than I anticipated it being. I think someone complained that me and Jacob did like a 15-minute video on Rashford the other day, pod on Rashford, and someone said finally a shorter one. So people obviously, so that guy was obviously not enjoying the duration of the shows. Right then, thank you very much for those that have joined us live, and thank you to everyone that will go on and watch and listen as well. And thank you to Nordvpn for continuing to sponsor us. Do check that out if you want to watch more football in your life. I'll be back, probably not tomorrow. I won't do anything tomorrow, but I'll conjure a show together for Wednesday and do something, I would think. And then, of course, towards the end of the week, there'll be the normal match preview. And Greg and myself, of course, will be back next Monday, as we always are as well. Do all the things that really, really help the channel. Please, if you are enjoying the content, please, on Spotify and Apple, do all the things that I talk about every week. And on YouTube, leave us a comment, subscribe with post notifications on. Let's get those subscriber numbers up, and give it a like as well. All these little things, if you're enjoying the content, it does really, really help us. So please do that. Yeah, have a great Monday. Soapbox Stereo saying crackling, not crackling. Good tech work. It's Dave Reid. The problem is with Dave Reid. I've had Jacob and Greg on now. No crackling. We have to get to the bottom of Dave Reid's crackling issue. Honestly, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all the support. Back later on in the week. Have a good Monday. Up the Villa.